Matveenko. I work for the advanced company and I deal with servers, but sometimes I deal with Python. And I'd like to tell you now about the way Python deals with time and the other stuff. This is what it looks like. The eternal problems and challenges. So what is time? As a matter of fact, unfortunately, people have invented too many ways to count time, to put down the time, etc. But for you to understand, what you can see on the bottom is all you need, is all they can write about the date. And there are some other interesting features there that I will show you later. So there is also time, not only date but time. And some users sometimes say, I want to get something within 2 hours from now. How can we put it down? What time is it now? It's quite difficult to say. That's why, naturally, I'm not the very first one who deals with time. We want to standardize it, and a lot of interesting formats and standards have been invented to transmit time and date using JSON, and where it is unclear what is expected from you. I love the RFC standard most of all, because everything is so well shown there. It looks as if we put down April the 5th, and not everything looks quite impressive when we say 04. Should we add 4 hours or deduct it? Well, certainly if you know what it is about, it's easier for you. But for the machine, they have come up with Unix timestamp. It is really cool. There are no time zones, etc. But there are problems with it. Basically, everything is okay because it is always the same. However, unfortunately, it started on the 1st of January of 1970, and the number of seconds since then is calculated. Before that, there were no timestamps. So if you deal with any dates that date back to the 19th century, then you can do nothing about it. And even if you deal with dates like this after 1970, you send your information to the USA, and they say something is wrong about your system. But you say everything is okay because because in the United States it really starts from since 1970, but there it is in milliseconds. So you need to divide the number you have into 1,000. So it's not that easy. So it's not. It is certainly thousands, fractions, it's whatever. And what's the situation like in Python? Everything is okay. You have the time, the current time. You have the minutes there. You have today here. But it's logical that it's not the time, but it's today. But somehow it's really confusing to me. And now it even works like this, since I don't know what time with Python 3 plus. 3 plus. Before that, we needed to do it like that. It wasn't so pleasant, but now with Python 3 we use 3.6, sometimes 3.7 in tests. Everybody is getting ready for 3.6 to be 7 to be released. But it looks like all of it is already there in the code. And then the questions start whether it's convenient to handle timestamps, because if I want some other time zone, it would result that the time is different. the numbers would be different. And when you transfer your timestamps to some place, and then the time zone there is different, and but you forgot about it, you discover that you shouldn't have forgotten about it. So these kind of time travels are quite regular. And so you can see that there is no time zone here, and there is no time zone there either. How were they generated? With quadrants and nine, it looks like it does something by itself, but then we send it to front end, and you ask yourself, what was it? Let's add the time zone here. Everything looks okay. We can also add UTC, but it's untrue, because it's not UTC now. So we can create some time that we have now, but we want to have a direct Moscow. In a standard library, we don't have a DB for time zones. We cannot handle them. So this packet is quite alright for a standard library which is updated regularly. For Java, just like the cases with Java and some other libraries, so the ATZ, PYTZ packet is kept there, quite alright. Everything looks okay now. And now suddenly we have 7 a.m. and then it is 11, and also in the right time zone. Now we can do a lot of interesting things here. Then it's time to use a time zone from the packet of PYTZ. This is a time zone module which makes it possible to use ADC. It is not ADC that you have for time, but the one which is quite clear, which the time zone knows how to convert. But there is one more problem here. It so happens that sometimes a point in time occurs twice. That is to say, when we change the time in autumn, then it so happens that the time on the calendar passes through the same time 2 times in a sequence.
So the time zone modules and have SDST parameter, and you can indicate that this time was before time zone change and the other is after the change, but nobody knows what it is. You can just guess, and you can do it the other way if the timestamp is transferred. But they say that that's what you can do in Python 3.6. It will have a fault parameter in the date dt, and if there is a time, and it can say that fold 0 and fold 1, then it means that it is one run and the other. And to be on the safe side, they might have 2 as well. But now they have fold 0 and fold 1. And history does not know time changed 3 times. But no. Python 3.0 does not have it yet, not possible like this, and so the STD does not work like that. And SpyTZ, and there are many other bugs, many words, and sometimes we will face the situation when Python will know that, but Python 3.6 has the required infrastructure. But we are talking, what about the real time? We are talking about the datetime stamps, but how do users use time? We can parse it like this. That's what the front end has. It might have it from external source. It is some front-end application, STPR, Ajax, and we can parse it. Fine. Or we can parse this particular date if front end has got the time zones. But we should agree on something before we have this particular date, because it is not possible to pass it back. We cannot say it PZ. Everything should be aligned. If not, then it's no good. But we cannot work like that with the users. We cannot request the user to write it like that. How could they send their time and date? The top line is fine, we should support it, we want the front ends work. Sometime it is show MSK as the time zone, or the users might have it different, like at the bottom. Or we do not write anything, or we do not write seconds, or the things that come from the front end. At the very last one, do you think it is the 11th of April or the 4th of November? It is the 4th of November. Why? And over here?
Ну, по-моему, хорошо. Ну, там вот 4, ладно, ноября, там еще понятно, 17 мне нравится. Вот. Но бывает...
The 4th of November 17, or it might be like this.
Ну, все же понятно, правда?
So everything is clear, right? But you can tell me what the date will be tomorrow. And the computer should know as well. The computer is smart. But that's my favorite one. And in true, I was sent it through API. We receive a line, and the field is apply before. And over there it is as soon as possible. So what shall we do? They say there are special tools. Everything has been written before us. And indeed, there are 3 different things that have been written, and none of them work. And they claim that they can parse human-readable data. And what shall we do? I decided to take this list and to pass it through those things. Let's see what has happened. Parse the time has got me 2017. I don't know why it parsed the line which is at the top. Tell me why. If you know, tell me. It uses calendar, and I told we should have a direct approach, but we should deal with that bug. Let us assume that I didn't manage to look into it. Let us assume that the computer is persistent in it. And we can develop it, and next, everything is fine, everything is great over here, but then that's where the problems occur. There is a certain specificity over here as well. it is the decision that the developer for the library to take what should be written into the time, either zeros because they were not transferred, or the current time, or what was included into memory. I don't know why 12:23. That was okay. That was the current time when the slides were being made. Everything is here over here. But the previous one was the truth, but it is false over here. It is the 11th of April. Things happen. I would agree with the second one, but not with the first one. I think it was necessary to explain the locale. It must be okay in the US locale, but I saw that kind of date in the trailer of some film. It was written like that, and so they thought it is the 11th of April. But I think the libraries trust it. Here there are some problems. That date parser, because local should have been explained, and if I have made a reference to the Russian locale, and if the Cyrillic or Ukrainian would have been received. Date util is gone over here, but those things are still over there. They understand it. They understand that tomorrow happens. It is date. Tomorrow is date. 11 a.m. is then 11th in the morning, 9th in the morning. But 11.am is a predicament, but that's the time that was sent to me. This case is very complicated, but the others are a success. Tomorrow I'm overly happy with the tomorrow, and the winner is...
Я считаю, что просто это вот с одной единственной багой с буквочкой Т, которую нам, наверное, исправят, да?
With the only bug, only T, we can manually process it, and if there is a T, it is possible to develop it to help the guys. But if we forget that the ISO format cannot cope with that format, I think that's the winner. We should praise bug to time, and we need an author over here and to have him how they managed it. So that's about it. If you have any questions, yes, the microphone is available. I'm Ivan from Distillery Company. We have two major problems at our project associated with time zones. It is an awful bug when we convert from Pacific to APC time zones. When you convert a regular date from Pacific and back, you have a different date with the time difference of 53 minutes. Did you come across such a problem? What do you think about it? And we resolved this problem by refusing to transfer the M stamps from one date into another, from Python to topless. Everything is converted correctly in the letter. And what about storing the dates of the future events? For example, if you log certain events that participated in that occurred in the past, the date will not change if you store them. But many developers that work with storing future events complain that the government in Russia took a decision when there was summertime, then there was no summertime, and as a result, the times date stones is not stored. And if you store the future zone and the government changes the decreed time, the summertime, and the events shift. And we are planning to store the dates of the future events separately. Date, time, and time zone. And in this case, you can get the dynamic timestamps of this moment for the time of the request. I understand it's a very good question and a very good case, and that's what you have to know to distinguish tomorrow and each of those environments, because if they tell us to launch something every Wednesday at 1 a.m. and I can schedule it, I can plan timestamps for this event, but this will not work, because as soon as there is a law that generates timestamps has changed from the current one, because you have changed the time zones, everything goes wrong. And because if you have a user from some city and he had the indication that that's the time zone, and then the time zone has changed and the user wanted the event to take place at 3 a.m. and it will be started or will be happening at 4, because you have generated timestamps well in advance. And it is important so storing date is not a panacea if the user expects a day of the week and not a date. And in this case, you should store what the user has instructed you to save. And if you realize that the situation has changed for the user, you will have to recalculate, because if the user tells you first Wednesday of the month, then you will have to redo the recalculation. What is the first Wednesday? What is the 11th a.m.? You should just memorize what the user told you, and after the PSD changed, then you have to recalculate. And talking about the recalculation of it's a good idea for you can, when we are talking about past events, not when something can change, it is to switch over to UTC or to timestamps. It is to persist from where to where nothing can change, and then it is just resolving the issue of deploying. And when we have UTC, when we scrap the information we do not need, and when we store it in the base, then the more reliable recall would be. Yes, please. Talking about the Postgres and getting the data to Python, if Alchemy is used, we can face an interesting bug. When Python got to the daytime in Postgres, if it is time with the time zones, it will be time with offset without information on the summertime. And if we convert into the stamp, then we can get the stamp wrong. True, that's why you should store what the user has transferred to you. The way, if you do not store it in UTC, if it is important for you what time zone is, you will have to save it somewhere. No microphone. the audience does not use any microphone. We take UTC, we cut off everything and we save it without any information so that Postgres will not be doing anything. And then at the phase of displaying we say that's the time in UTC, and then now let's decide on how we are going to display it. Let me add, the Postgres returns the stamps into the same sets that it was configured, or you can configure it in the you can change it in the current session. It does not give you the information of the time zone. If this information is important, it should be memorized, yes, separately, because the information that this is Europe or Moscow, any other city with +3, this information should be stored separately. There are some time zones. It could be stored like Europe system, Europe, Moscow, and these are set events. You can take a name and save this particular name. And the user tells me that he is in or she is in this particular zone, but that depends what information is important to store about the time of the user or not. Anything else? Over there, in the back of the... You have said that storing in UTC as a panacea of resolving such an issue. I have a case the other day, and many might come across it is the distribution. If we have an event that occurs every Monday at 2, and the team is distributed, and there are people from different time zones, and in some time zones there is a transfer to winter time, and there are 3 time zones that we are dealing. There is no transfer in one, and there is a transfer to winter time in the other one, but the third one you have the transfer to the winter time not on the same day as in the second one, so you can understand what a mess is. And the event happens in the reference point. It is not just a time in the UTC, but the event occurs at 2 p.m. But that's what that's the event that happens over here. But the event is happening in New York, and so that's what we have discussed when there was a first question raised. There are events that are clear and nothing will change. It is the past event, and we just persist what time it happened. We looked into it and we understood from what information the user has given us that it might be the local time of the time zone, and we can translate it into the UTC, and we are happy. But if it is the schedule in the future, we should decide what is important for us and what information is the user bases its perception of the time. And what you are saying is that we should save the time zones, and we should agree that the most important time zones for this event is the New York time or the other one, but it was just one of the private cases.
Once again, it's 2 different things. What is important for the user in each particular case? If what matters to the user is that a particular event occurs in a particular time zone, he should indicate in what time zone it is occurring, and then we should remember it and recalculate it in the right way. That is to say that the event will take place at such and such time, New York time, for instance at 3, a.m. or 7 a.m. Anyway, New York time zone, and after they change for winter time, it would be a certain time for the time zone for which we need to look it up. For instance, Europe, Moscow. And it is important to speak to the user the same language the user speaks to the system. It's for the events which have already taken place, it is possible, but we should be aware that this is really so. So it's preferable to keep it, to store it not in UTC. We can remove the time zone, nobody could spoil it, and when we want to display it, then we can say that normally we store it in UTC, then we convert it into the current version for the current user, and then it will be okay. So there are lots of subtleties, particularly when moving it between systems, and when you deal with Python and other systems, you need to understand what is going on. If you put a timestamp in motors, then if you turn it into a script object, then it should be multiplied by 1,000. So we should always know whether we speak to a system or to a user. This is the way it is. Any more questions? It looks like it. Like it's over then. Thank you.